I'm Dutch, and let's react to the Americans. Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Johan, and I'm a typical Dutchman. And if you're planning to come over to Europe for your holidays, or if you're planning to live here, or if you're wondering why is everything so expensive in the United States in comparison with Europe, then you are at the right channel, because in the channel I react to videos about life and living in America versus life and living and the cost of life and living in Europe. And to do so, we're going to take a look today at Richard Wolff's Last Warning. I've seen something about it, and he was recommended to me to watch this one. It says that Richard D. Wolff is an American economist and professor emeritus at the University of Massachusetts. He is known for his critique of economic inequality and his advocacy for worker cooperatives as a way to empower individuals and address systematic issues within the economy. Wow. Okay, well, it's not him that we're subscribing to, but to Free Invest. So subscribe and like the video. And I'm curious what he has to say as his last warning. People have no idea what's about to happen. Oh boy. He is not in control of what?
He is not in control of what happens to prices. Mr. Biden wasn't. No president who has ever confronted an inflation has been able in some kind of magical way by issuing an order to stop it. It misunderstands the relationship between economics and politics. One is the driver, that's the economy, and the other one reacts as best they can, usually in a limp way, trying to make some adjustment, and if they're lucky, they can get away with it. So baldly saying he's instructed his associates to do the impossible, it strikes me as charming. It's like instructing them to go and practice so they can leap over the Empire State Building. All the
Okay, it's a mission impossible. Dun, 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 dun. All the practice in the world.
Practice in the world not going to help you do that, you silly person. It's a kind of theatrical fakery that passes for heavy concentration. And let me drive something else home. Drill, baby, drill? Really? You know the costs of that? You think that an explosion of drilling is going to stop the inflation? No, it isn't. There are lots of factors that are pushing prices up. Not the least of them is deporting immigrants, imposing tariffs.
Deporting immigrants or imposing tariffs. It won't help.
Tariffs are a tax. They raise the price of what those taxes are applied to. This is a basic law of economics taught in every classroom across America.
In every classroom in America. So everybody should know that tariffs are another word for taxes. So no more tax. Yeah, no, we put in a tariff. It's the same. But apparently beyond the capacity.
But apparently beyond the capacity of Mr. Trump and the people applauding, and you really have to use metaphors I will not dare employ to capture what's going on here. If at the same time that we impose tariffs that raise prices and we have a collapse of the poor people in this country's economic circumstances, in other words, they cannot service household debt, which is at a record level in this country, or corporations cannot service their debt, which is also at a record level in the history of the United States here, one of the responses would be something that happened a few years ago in Japan. Depression. In other words, the opposite of an inflation, you have a deflation, falling prices. That could happen. And then someone would say, see, when you impose tariffs, prices go down. No.
Yeah. See? When you impose tariffs, prices go down. Oh,
No,
no.
no. But if you do tariffs at the same time that other major influence on prices occur, well, then it can go any which way. That doesn't deal with the normal. All I'm telling you is that if you have a big program of tariffs, it's now become incumbent on Mr. Trump, if he's going to do that, to tell us how and why we should expect offsetting developments in the world economy that could bring us down. Giving us examples of when it went one way or the other is irrelevant. He has to do that, and he hasn't done it. There's absolutely nothing that we should expect in this kind of situation.
Whoa. He's not holding back. he's he's a man of my heart. He could be a Dutchman. Fair, square, no holding back. Directly, this is how it is. Take it or leave it. Pure honesty. I like him already.
At the instigation of the United States, we have a treaty called NAFTA. Under Mr. Trump's first presidency, that treaty was renegotiated, signed again by Mr. Trump, which expressly commits the United States not to impose tariffs. That's what the treaty is for. This is a decision made by the president to impose tariffs. And the reason given? Fentanyl? You gotta be kidding. No one in their right mind would believe that, except perhaps here in the United States, because they dare not ask the question. Fentanyl was coming into this country when NAFTA was passed and when the next Congress was passed. Everybody in their right mind knew, because it was in the financial press. What NAFTA was to give access to the United States to products coming from Canada and Mexico without paying a tariff. And
Yeah, and Trump negotiated this and made this and agreed on it and make it the new sign on it. So this was the new version of no tariffs, and now he is doing it exactly the opposite. Wow.
Vice versa, goods from America going to Mexico. That's what the thing was for. Mr. Trump is unilaterally breaking or threatening to break a treaty obligation and giving as his reasons something that makes absolutely no sense at all.
Fentanyl. You need to stop the introducing of fentanyl. Yeah.
By the way, it will come whether these tariffs are imposed or not, is because the United States is a buyer at incredible wealth of all of these drugs. As the president of Mexico recently said, the drug problem exists on both sides of the border. All we have is the cheap shot of a president in the U.S. who finds it convenient to blame one half of the story and pretend the other one isn't guilty. This is not going.
Yeah, it's not true. It's fake news. It's fake. It's not true.
To cut it. Now, let's imagine, however, that he goes through with it. Let's imagine that the Republican Party is in sufficient control to make it happen. I have only two things to say. One, all Americans should join me in taking a step back and realizing what Mr. Trump is proposing. The Republican Party, for at least the last century, has presented itself to the American people. Vote for us because we cut taxes, we want to reduce government, blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah. Oh. Vote for us because we reduce taxes. And now they have imposed taxes.
Program of massive tariffs is a tax on imports. Just like we have a tax on income, a tax on wealth, a tax on sales, a tax on property, we have a tax on imports. We've had it from the beginning of the United States. It used to be called import duties. Now it's called tariffs. But this is a party that has abandoned tax cuts and now puts forward tax increases. But because it is a theatrical party and is afraid to confront the reality, it finds it terribly exciting to refer to tariffs as if they weren't taxes. And as you know, Mr. Trump is fond of talking about tariffs as if they are being imposed on China, which of course they can't be. The only imposition of tariffs on China that can be done is by the government in China, not here. Anyway, here's the second point. Mexico is an economy with a lot of problems. It's a poor country, certainly relative to the United States. The United States is now its largest purchaser of Mexican exports, a result in part of the NAFTA agreements. Okay, if you deport millions, which he's promised to do, into Mexico, as you impose tariffs, which he's now promised to do on Mexico, you're hitting Mexican economy with a 1, 2, 3 punch. I would like everyone to understand. Number one, millions of Mexicans or Central Americans now working in the United States send money back to Mexico. It's called remittances.
Remittances, yeah. We'll say it's a good, it's a very important income on the Mexican side, yeah.
It's a very important income to the Mexican economy. That will either disappear or be sharply reduced in a relatively short amount of time. That's a major economic blow. If you hit them with tariffs, it will shut off a significant portion of their exports because those will become too expensive in the United States because the cost of production in Mexico will have added to it the tariff importers have to pay Uncle Sam. That will hurt exports from Mexico, and the U.S. is its #1 market. Third and final, if you do these two things, you will depress employment in Mexico. People who can't keep their jobs because their employer cannot sell exports in the United States, which means Mexico will have no remittances, millions of people arriving looking for work at a time of shooting up unemployment. You know what that is? A recipe to fundamentally destabilize an economy. We're going to have on our southern border an enormously dysfunctional catastrophe.
Wow. If he explains it in this way, how economics works, yeah, he does it correct. It's the way it works. Less income, less export, less people needed for companies, more unemployment. Yeah.
It is a staple of American history. Unfortunately, it's also a staple of European history and Asian history and African history. It's called the infant industry argument. It's been around for 2 centuries, if not more. And it says the following: if you're a country that's behind other countries in its economic development, which the United States in the 19th century was, but you're now having the ability to at least start to have an industrial foundation. You might then say that your industries were in their infancy. Well, then the argument was you need protection from the more advanced industrial powers, which for the United States in the 19th century was above all Britain, of which it had been a colony until not that long before, and to a second degree, Germany. And by the way, infant industry argument, if you look at the most developed arguments for it, is German. The German economy list, LIST, is famously associated with the most sophisticated arguments. You'll be squashed in your infancy because the more developed, having the market to themselves, because you're not there yet, will lower the price, which you cannot achieve, and so they'll kill you. And if you want to live and you want to grow and you want to be an industrial base, you have to protect yourself until you're of a size comparable to the old guys, and then they can't do anything that you can't match. That's an argument for a tariff protection. The United States has used them on and off. Absolutely. There's nothing new, revolutionary that Mr. Trump would sign it. But let me underscore what he's not telling you. We have, for the previous half century, been the #1 country favoring free trade because we could excel, because we were the old guys. We could squash the infants who had to protect themselves, which they did around the world, mostly by tariffs.
Yeah. So now it's the other way around. Oh. And now Trump just, it's putting in tariffs. It's generating the opposite effect right now. Oh boy.
In most cases, the United States wouldn't let them have tariffs, threaten damage to them if they did. The one country in the world that had something better than a tariff protection was the People's Republic of China. They had the Communist Party and the whole ideological, geopolitical barrier that prevented them from having to worry. They could develop their own market because of the size of their country. That could mushroom quickly relative to what the West had. So they were able, without tariffs, to protect themselves. But you can be sure that if the richest country of the world, which used to be the protector of free trade, can't make it anymore in a free trade world that it helped to create, will now lead the march back to tariffs, back to protectionism. And to answer your question, absolutely. The number one question in Europe today, among the giants there, Germany, Britain, France, Italy, is whether and how to follow the United States. And they're not at all unaware that when countries become protectionist, turning inward, they become unreliable allies in global politics.
Yeah, that's what we see a lot, what we hear. Europe is turning into itself and making more deals with Canada and with Australia and with China. So,
because they're out for number one. Now, they always were, but number one's interests were a global free trade environment. Now number one isn't. And you have the irony that Mr. Xi Jinping in China is talking about free trade and open dialogue. He's the champion of free trade because the United States cannot play that role. But that's because our economy is in trouble and declining, not because we are strong and powerful. The latter is make-believe. Mr. Trump is already in a terribly contradictory position, which he is very careful never to acknowledge, and I suspect because he doesn't even see it. He doesn't want to see it, but let me do it for him.
Yeah, he doesn't want to see it. He doesn't see it and doesn't want to see it.
Uncertainty is the enemy of stock markets everywhere. Yeah. And it's not the enemy out of some ideological matter. Uncertainty means that if you're a company, you cannot make your normal business decisions. When you had an era of free trade, more or less, and by the way, tariffs have been in existence against the United States and by the United States for the last 50 years without interruption. But
not that high, yeah.
There was a general commitment to minimize them. The so-called GATT, a General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. This was an agreement, let's keep them to a minimum. Let's have the World Trade Organization supervise that they're kept to a minimum. But they've always been there. But here's what they were. They were kind of fixed. I think I gave you the example last time. The United States put a tariff on foreign pickup trucks. And so pickup trucks in the United States were protected by a 25% tariff, that's a lot, against the Europeans. That's why Americans, quote unquote, fell in love with the pickup truck. No love involved. It was advertising because the car companies made much more money off a pickup truck than they did off a regular car. The tariff on regular cars was, I think, 2%, and the tariff on the pickup truck was 25%. Ergo, it became necessary to associate male egos, particularly with pickup trucks. And we had a romance of the pickup truck, imagining that this had nothing to do with capitalism, which, of course, is the specialty of capitalism as a functioning system.
Oh, man. Yeah. Hard truth. Huh?
So everybody at least knew for 50 years there's a 25%. All the car companies adjusted. If you come to the United States, you can make a Toyota pickup truck because you don't have the thing. You don't have the tariff. But you can't do it in Japan. You can't do it in Europe. Etc. You could make a plan. You can't make a plan now because you do not know what tariff will be negotiated up, down, postponed, delayed, canceled. It's impossible. Already, both Mitsubishi and Nissan told Mexico the plans they had to build multi-billion-dollar car part factories down there are off. They're not going to move into Mexico because the premise was you could then ship those parts into Texas, cross the border, no tariff. Then it's profitable. With a tariff, it's not profitable. With half a tariff, if they negotiate that, well, maybe a smaller this is impossible. No corporate CEO wants to make an investment, by the way, that will take years to complete and billions of dollars to pay for, only to arrive at the end with a situation utterly different from what you have now. You can't do that. By the way, many of these plants, decisions have to be made now. They won't come online until after Mr. Trump isn't president anymore, unless he gets another term for himself. So,
unless he gets another term for himself. I hope not. It will be a big fight because there's only 2 terms. But yeah, the things that he has done the last couple of months while he's in office, I fear a lot.
So even if you like Trump, you can't function. All right. That means you have to remember how capitalism works. Capitalism is a system in which the money we get, we then spend. And the reason we spend it is why other people get it. And the reason we get our income is because other people spend on whatever it is we help to produce. The money goes around and around to keep us all working. Breakdown happens if someone who earns an income doesn't turn around and spend it, because then whoever depended for their income on that spending doesn't get an income. All right, the working class is not a problem. It can't keep any money. The few workers who keep money save it, put it in the bank, and that lends it to the credit card working class people who spend more than they earn. So it nets out. There is no savings by the working class. But the business, the corporations, the corporate, they're the ones who earn profits, and they sit around deciding whether to invest them or not.
Geloof je nog steeds dat een 9 tot 5 baan je ooit rijk gaat maken? Want laat me je dan introduceren aan iets wat echt werkt.
When there's uncertainty, they don't invest. And that means money that needed to go in to keep income going isn't. Capitalism means that the 97% of us who are not employers are held hostage to the investment decisions of the 3% who are. And what's going on is messing around with those 3%'s calculations, and they wait. And when they wait, we have a recession. That's what a recession is, when they wait. Mr. Trump is making them wait. He doesn't want a recession. That's not a good thing for him. That he will get blamed for that, the way presidents always do. It's actually
No, it's Biden. No, it's not me, it's Biden.
unfair because they don't have that much power one way or the other anyway. But this is very dangerous for him, and I'm sure his advisors are telling him this. What he's going to do, who knows? Here's an irony for those who want to understand. Tariffs are going to raise prices, there's no question about that.
Yeah.
But you know what could cancel the price increase? A real doozy of a recession. Because when recessions happen, businesses know that they're not going to be able to sell what they produced at the old price with a recession, so they dare not raise it. You could have offsetting, and so we won't have the kind of price increases otherwise we will.
If they cannot sell the product, then they don't have income. And if they don't have income, they cannot pay out their shareholders, etc., etc. Yeah, okay, but yeah, most of those stuff are daily needed stuff, bread and eggs, and so yeah.
No one knows, and anyone who tells you that, don't talk to them anymore. No one knows how this is going to play out. But there again, notice the image which keeps coming to me. Mr. Trump, and maybe that's what we ought to talk about, is facing fundamental economic problems. Whatever his megalomania, he's trying to solve some problem, the people around him too. they're throwing Hail Mary passes. They're hoping that somehow all of this will come back and come down, and we will all gasp as the player he hoped for actually gets that ball after it's bounced around other people's hands for a while. That's what we're looking at. We are all being held hostage to a system that works like that, which is what the problem in the end really is. Every government in the world, good ones, bad ones, corrupt ones, wonderful ones, every one of them now has an opportunity they didn't have before last week. Whatever economic problems that country has, and every country has them, whatever blame might have been attached to the leaders of that country for the economic problems they have, those leaders can now blame on Mr. Trump.
Yeah, it's not us, no. It's Trump. It's the United States with their tariffs, yeah.
That is not good for the United States. You become a whipping boy. You become the blame object. Whether or not that's a reasonable argument, it'll be every politician's dream. We could have done this except for Mr. Trump and his tariffs. We could have done that except for Mr. Trump. We had to do the other because of Mr. Trump. Oh, you know, this is going to become a mantra we're going to live with for years ahead. By the way, there's smart people on Wall Street who know this and who understand that is a big, fat risk Mr. Trump is taking on behalf of the United States. That may have to be paid off bitterly and dearly in the years ahead. You know, it's like taking out a huge loan for a risky project. You're going to have to pay the interest for many years. Whether that project delivers is an open question. You're taking a big risk. And you may not be around 5 or 10 years from now, but they're going to be calling in that loan, and then they'll be held to pay, to say the least.
Yeah. If the national debt of the United States is getting higher by, what was it, 4 trillion, it has to be paid. And Trump is then out of office, but it still has to be paid by taxes. So no matter what happens after Trump, yeah.
This is going precisely nowhere, and I'll explain you why. Every country in the world is now aware that the United States government is able and willing to hit them with tariffs. Whether or not they now go up or down, even if they were to be erased tomorrow, the same president on the same country with the same economic problems may do it next week, next month, next year. That's the uncertainty I'm talking about. And therefore, every company in the world, including American companies, by the way, not just foreign, capitalists around the world, countries, here's what they're going to do, slowly but steadily. They're going to reduce their dependence on the United States, whether they buy from us or sell to us or borrow here or whatever their activity is. They're not going to want to be subject to this uncertainty. And so they're going to move. They're going to look for a market they don't have to worry it'll be hit. Well, there's one dominant option in the world if you're not going to deal with the United States, and that's China. That's where the wealth is. China can be very bravado because it's going to pick up a wealth of export opportunities, import opportunities, investment opportunities, lending opportunities. And the United States has so alienated Europe, even though it's a much secondary part of the world economy now, they're still very rich. And the Chinese are busy working their rear ends off, cutting deals with the Europeans, whose anger at the United States makes them uniquely likely to cut a deal with the Chinese, especially the Germans. So you're going to see a rearrangement of the world, but no one knows how that looks at the end. It could very well be that the United States becomes terribly isolated, really becomes an outlier in a world where the vast majority of the people, that's already true, the vast majority of the people are economically focused somewhere else. We've never had that before. Europe and America have been the core of the colonial world when that was there, and the post-colonial world, they kept on being the economic center. Now, by their own act, they are cutting themselves off. China and the BRICS together are 60% of the world's people. The United States is 4.5% of the world's people. Don't ever forget those numbers. You will make catastrophic mistakes if you do. This could end up in a situation where, and I'm talking a few years, not a lifetime, 5 years, 3 years, we could have a reaction in this country as what I've just described begins to show itself. I mean, that'll take time. It won't happen in a week or a month. But as this begins to show itself, my guess is you're going to see the business community go, oh my God, was this a mistake? And then work overtime to try to undo as much of the damage as they can. Will that happen? I don't know. I can't predict the future, but I can tell you for sure that when Mr. Trump says, take your medicine, there's a little problem here, that is total BS. That's exactly as valuable as a few years ago during the pandemic when the inflation then started and the Federal Reserve, Mr. Powell, assured us it would be, and I loved his word, transitory. Yeah, it turned out to be, and he rued the day that he used that word. They won't use that ever again because of its bad association. When Mr. Trump tells you what the results of this tariff program are, don't listen. He doesn't know. I don't know either, but he doesn't know, and he's the one taking the enormous risk. If anything, the megalomania is beginning to show itself as, I'm the age that I am, how much have I got to lose? I may go out, but I'll go out with a bang. You know, and he's working pretty hard to make sure that there will be a bang of whatever else there is not so clear.
This is the relative decline of Western civilization. Europe is going to become a tourist destination and not a whole hell of a lot more. The war in Ukraine, which is a war in Europe, is being decided by the United States, which isn't in Europe, and Russia, that has declared itself and its future to be Asian. The modern development of high technology. It's a non-European event. It happens in the United States. It happens in China. The industries of Europe are dying, are disappearing, are shrinking. Europe is less and less important. That famous conference in Berlin in 1884, when they literally sat in front of a map of Africa and carved up Germany would get this, and France would get that, and Britain that. And then the explosions that we call World Wars I and II, which were mostly European events. Europe is the center. Europe is the dominant. Europe is where I look to learn about literature and science. And now Europe is becoming more and more an unimportant corner of the world.
Okay. Wow. Hard to react to, but damn. He's telling the truth, the hard truth. And he's explaining the economics and how the economics is functioning, and that Trump cannot change that. He tries to, but all he does is making it worse instead of making it better. Wow. Richard Wolff. Good man. Wow. His last warning to all of you. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. How much does this actually influence your daily life and the things that you do? Let me know. I'm curious what the effects are after this video. Oh, wow. Well, thank you for watching. And if you want to see more of my videos, then this is a good place to start with. I need to point further. Yeah. And otherwise, you can also subscribe to my channel. That would mean the world to me if you actually do. It is a good thing. So, hopefully I will see you in the next video.